Some people don't just walk into your life to love you. They come to drain you, to hollow you, to set fire to your peace while smiling in your face. And by the time you see their horns, it's too late, unless you learn to spot them before they strike. These are not ordinary people. They are observers of weakness, students of pain, and masters of disguise. They never show their full hand when the sun is high and your spirit is steady. They wait, patient as vultures circling overhead. They bide their time until they smell the scent of your weariness in the wind. They sense it like heat on skin. They know when your laughter grows thinner, when your smile doesn't reach your eyes, when your shoulders slump just a little more than yesterday. They hear the tremor in your voice before you do, and in that moment they draw closer, not because they want to lift you, but because it's easier to push a soul that's already leaning forward. That's how it always begins, with small, quiet steps. They hover when the tears haven't yet dried. When you've just lost the job, just buried the dream, just walked away from the person you thought would stay forever. They appear as comfort, but the comfort they bring is laced with hooks. Every word has an undertone. Every gesture carries a hidden ledger. I'll be here for you, they say. But what they really mean is, now is when I begin my work. They understand something about human nature that most overlook. In our lowest moments, we crave safety more than truth. We cling to any hand that feels warm, even if it's pulling us into the fire. And so, they offer warmth, soft, familiar, soothing, but it comes at a cost you won't see until much later. These are the kind of people who pat your back while slowly pressing you into a chair you'll find impossible to rise from. At first, they seem indispensable. They show up when no one else does. They call, they text, they offer to run errands, to listen, to help you figure things out. They say they understand you better than anyone. And maybe for a moment, it feels like they do, but not because they've studied your dreams, because they've studied your wounds. They know exactly where you flinch. They know the stories that still make your throat tighten. They know which memories can make your faith in yourself waver, and they feed on that. Their attacks are never obvious. Sometimes it's just a comment, seemingly innocent, a reminder of the breakup just when you start laughing again, a soft mention of the loss you've been trying to move past. They keep you tethered to your pain because the hurting version of you is easier to control. A strong person can say no, a weakened one whispers. So they twist empathy into a leash. They comfort you, but their comfort comes with chains. Soon you'll find yourself relying on them more than you realize. Every time you feel fragile, you think of them first. You begin to associate their presence with stability, not noticing that the more you depend on them, the smaller your world becomes. Real support makes you stronger. Theirs makes you afraid to stand alone. Real love celebrates your healing. Theirs depends on your brokenness. Listen carefully to the patterns. It's in the way they remind you how everyone else left, but they stayed. In the way they position themselves as the only one who truly understands you. The only safe harbor in a world that's been cruel. It sounds like love, but it's a trap disguised as a hug, because a healthy person rejoices when you rise again. A human demon flinches when you regain your strength, because the moment you do, they lose their grip. And when they sense your spirit starting to heal, they move quickly to plant new seeds of doubt. Are you sure you're ready for that? They'll ask, pretending to care. I just don't want to see you get hurt again. Or, you've been wrong before. Subtle, soft-spoken, perfectly timed, their words strike the tender places in your self-belief. And so, you hesitate, you second-guess, and while you're caught in that pause, they smile. Because hesitation is the leash tightening. They understand timing like predators understand weakness. They will never confront you when your faith is alive and burning. No, they wait until your light flickers. Until the night feels long and your prayers feel unanswered. Then they appear, whispering reassurance while slowly wrapping you tighter in their invisible web. Think about it. Every story of betrayal shares this rhythm. The attack never comes when you're strong. It comes when you're tired, bowed under another burden. That is not coincidence. That is strategy. You might notice something else if you look closely. Their presence is always strongest during your storms. When life is calm, they fade to the background. But the moment trouble knocks, they are suddenly front and center. Not to shield you, but to make sure they're the voice in your ear when decisions are made. They'll tell you what this heartbreak really means, what this failure says about you. And soon you'll begin to believe their translation more than your own. That's the most dangerous part. Not the harm they cause outright, but the way they replace your inner voice. When their voice becomes louder in your head than your own, the battle is almost lost. Because once they control how you interpret your pain, they no longer need to hurt you directly. You'll do it yourself just to keep their approval. And they won't stop there. They'll begin to rewrite your memories too. They'll remind you how they were there when you were breaking apart, but leave out the part where they made sure you stayed broken just enough to need them again. It's a cycle. You fall, they catch you, they weaken you, and you fall again. But here's what they never want you to realize. They cannot destroy a soul that stands whole in its light. Their influence only works in the shadows, only thrives when you are exhausted, grieving, or afraid. They cannot conquer what is rooted in truth. So they make it their mission to dim your light, slowly, subtly, under the guise of care. Watch for them. Watch for those who only show up when you are bleeding but vanish when you are healed. Watch for those whose comfort keeps you quiet instead of brave. Watch for those who say they're protecting you, but what they're really protecting is their control over you. Because those who thrive on your weakest moments will always make sure you have more of them. And the day you no longer need them, the day you finally rise without their permission, is the day they fear most. They will give to you, yes, but not the way a river gives to the thirsty. A river flows freely, without record, without expectation. These people keep score as if it were a sacred duty. Every word, every favor, every "I'll help you" is written somewhere in their invisible ledger. You may not notice it at first. In fact, you might even be touched by their generosity. You'll tell yourself, they're always there for me. They always show up when no one else does. And in the early days, it feels good. Warm, safe, like finally finding someone who understands you. But true kindness has no shadow. Real generosity doesn't come with the weight of obligation. Theirs does. You'll know it the first time you say no to them. That's when the air shifts. That's when the mask slips just enough for you to see what was hiding beneath. Suddenly, you're reminded, gently of course, of everything they've ever done for you. After all I've done, this is how you treat me, they'll say. I guess I was wrong about you. They'll weaponize their kindness until you can no longer tell where gratitude ends and guilt begins. They'll remind you of how they were the only one who stayed when everyone else walked away. Who did you call when no one else picked up? They'll ask, not to comfort you, but to remind you of your debt. And you'll feel it. The invisible rope pulling tighter around your chest. Because you did call them. You did lean on them. You did let them in. And now every act of comfort has become a coin you owe them back. This is how they build their control, not through violence or threats, but through the quiet economy of guilt. They make you feel that you owe them your time, your loyalty, your silence. Every time you try to assert your independence, they'll bring up something they did for you. Not with anger, no, that would be too obvious, but with disappointment, the sigh, the silence. The subtle shift in tone that makes you feel small. It's never loud, never dramatic, just heavy enough to make you reconsider standing your ground. And when you succeed at something, when you achieve what you once prayed for, they'll find a way to insert themselves into the story. You wouldn't have done it without me, they'll say with a laugh. Remember when I helped you apply? Remember when I told you to go for it? Their voice lingers like a fingerprint on your victories, as if your growth somehow belongs to them. They position themselves as the author of your progress, the reason for your survival. And if you ever dare to write a new chapter without them, they'll act as though you've stolen something that was rightfully theirs. It begins small, a simple "remember when," a casual "if it weren't for me," but those reminders are seeds. They plant themselves in your mind and sprout into roots that reach deep into your confidence. Soon you start second-guessing the source of your strength. Was it really you? Or was it them? You hesitate to celebrate without their approval, because somewhere along the way, they convinced you that your joy needs their blessing. Their kindness isn't a gift. It's a contract you never signed but are still expected to honor. It's a quiet chain wrapped in the illusion of care. Every favor comes with an unspoken clause. You owe me. And because you're grateful, because you remember the nights they showed up when no one else did, you pay the debt over and over again. Not with money, but with silence, with compliance, with shrinking yourself just enough to keep the peace. They are meticulous with what they give. They choose favors that are hard to measure, harder to repay. Emotional labor, grand sacrifices, the kind of help that can't be returned in equal measure. They do it on purpose, because you can pay back borrowed money, but how do you repay? I stayed with you when everyone else left. How do you equal I defended you when no one else would? You can't. That's the point. The more you grow, the more their tactics evolve. When you start to succeed, you'd expect them to be proud. But your independence threatens the balance they've worked so hard to create. If you no longer need them, their purpose crumbles. So they create new reasons for you to depend on them. They'll offer to help again, fund your project, connect you with the right people, fix a problem you didn't know you had. And each gesture becomes another knot in the rope. Every favor is another reminder that you wouldn't be here without them. They don't just help, they perform their help. Their generosity always comes with a spotlight. If they buy you something, everyone will know. If they comfort you, they'll tell the story to others, how they were there when you broke down, how they pulled you back from the edge. Not because they seek praise, but because they need witnesses. They want the world to remember your dependence as clearly as you do. It's not about helping. It's about narrative, power, image. And if they sense you slipping away, if they feel you starting to stand taller, they will raise the stakes. The gestures get bigger, the words get louder, the emotions heavier. They might appear at your doorstep in tears, claiming they can't live without you. They might create chaos, real or imagined, just to force you to come running back. And once you do, the cycle resets. Gratitude, guilt, dependence, silence. The tragedy is how easy it is to mistake this for love, because it feels intense. It feels personal. You think no one's ever cared this much about me before. But care that cages you is not care. It's control. Real love gives space. Real loyalty frees you to grow. Theirs traps you in a loop that keeps you looking backward, not forward. One day you'll start to see it. You'll notice how your victories feel heavier instead of lighter. You'll notice how every good moment somehow circles back to them. You'll realize that what you thought was a bond was really a debt. And that's when the truth hits hardest. They were never helping you to rise. They were anchoring you, disguised as your savior. When you finally understand that, their power begins to dissolve, because guilt only binds you if you accept it. The moment you see their generosity for what it truly was, a leash made of favors, you begin to remember something sacred. You don't owe anyone your freedom. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. You notice it first in their tone, how every compliment carries a shadow. I'm proud of you, they'll say, but their eyes don't match their words. Or, you deserve this, followed by a pause long enough for doubt to slip in. It's the kind of silence that makes you question if they mean what they say, and in that hesitation, their control deepens, because that's all they need. One small hesitation, one tiny crack in your certainty. They thrive on those cracks. That's where they plant their influence. At first, you tell yourself you're imagining it, that maybe you're being too sensitive, that maybe you owe them the benefit of the doubt, but it's not your imagination, it's their precision. They've learned exactly how to make you second-guess yourself without ever raising their voice. A sigh, a glance, a shift in mood so subtle it feels like your fault. Soon it becomes a rhythm you can't unhear. Every joy you share is met with a soft deflation. Every victory comes with an invisible weight. When you laugh, they remind you not to get ahead of yourself. When you speak with confidence, they tease you for sounding arrogant. You'll laugh with them at first, trying to take the sting out of it. But laughter turns hollow when it becomes your defense. They don't need to insult you directly. They just need to plant enough doubt for you to do it yourself. That's the brilliance of their cruelty. It's quiet. It hides in kindness, in just being honest, in only looking out for you. They'll correct the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you express yourself, all under the banner of care. I'm just trying to help, they'll say, and you'll feel ungrateful for being hurt by their help. They study your reactions like a scientist studying a specimen. If you confront them, they'll soften instantly, turning the spotlight back on your emotions. I didn't mean it that way, they'll whisper. You know how sensitive you can be. And suddenly you're the one apologizing. They twist the story so skillfully that by the end you doubt not only your feelings, but your memory. You begin to question whether the sting you felt was ever real. That's how they dismantle your inner compass, one conversation at a time. They turn self-awareness into self-blame. Reflection becomes apology. Doubt becomes habit. Before long, you filter your every word, your every move through the question, will this upset them? You start editing yourself in real time, cutting away pieces of your personality just to keep the peace. And yet somehow peace never comes, because peace was never their goal. It was your silence. They don't want calm. They want control. They will provoke conflict just to reset the power dynamic. One wrong tone, one unreturned call, one moment of independence, and they'll withdraw affection like oxygen. You'll feel the shift instantly, like walking into a room where the air is changed. The warmth you depended on turns cold, and your body responds before your mind can catch up. You rush to fix it, to make things right, without even knowing what you did wrong. That's the trap. They've trained you to crave their approval. You start measuring your worth by their moods. If they're happy, you breathe easier. If they're distant, you ache. And every time you manage to win back their smile, it feels like relief. But it's not relief, it's reinforcement. They are teaching you that peace only exists when you please them. It's a kind of invisible training. They condition you the way storms condition the earth, to brace, to bend, to yield. You stop expecting gentleness because you've learned that their affection always comes after pain. They'll hurt you, then comfort you, and the comfort will feel so powerful that you'll confuse it with love. That's how the cycle sustains itself. The same hand that wounds you will be the one to wipe your tears. And with every repetition, the contrast between hurt and healing blurs. You begin to believe that pain is proof of depth, that love must be earned through suffering. You tell yourself that their intensity means they care. But love, real love, does not require you to bleed to prove your worth. Real love is not a pendulum swinging between cruelty and comfort. It is a steady flame, not a flickering one. Still, they will make you forget that because they know that once you associate love with chaos, they never need to chase you again. You'll chase them. You'll chase apologies, explanations, moments of tenderness, anything that feels like the person they pretended to be in the beginning. That's how they trap you in nostalgia for something that never really existed. You start waiting for the return of their kindness, believing that if you just do better, if you just love them harder, they'll become who they were at the start. But that beginning was never real. It was the bait, the mask, the carefully crafted illusion designed to earn your trust. The version of them you fell for was built from your reflection. They mirrored your dreams, your humor, your pain. They studied your language and spoke it back to you until you believed it was fate. That's why the loss of them feels like losing yourself, because, in a way, you are. They built their identity out of your needs, and now that they're dismantling you, you can't tell where they end and you begin. And yet, even in that fog, something inside you resists. A faint pulse of clarity, a whisper that says, "This isn't love." You hear it when the room grows quiet, when you're finally alone with your thoughts. It's the sound of your spirit remembering what peace used to feel like. And that small remembering, that's where your power begins to return. Because the truth is, they never controlled your soul. They only distracted it. Their power depended on your forgetfulness, on you forgetting that your worth doesn't require validation, that your love isn't currency. that your voice was never meant to echo someone else's approval. When you remember that, the entire structure of their manipulation begins to crumble. Their words lose weight, their guilt loses shape, their absence stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like space to breathe, to stand, to rebuild. And in that stillness, when their noise finally fades, you'll understand something they never wanted you to see, that they needed you far more than you ever needed them. Because without your light, their shadow disappears. They do not thrive in peace. Peace starves them. Calm air suffocates their fire. They need conflict the way lungs need oxygen, because conflict keeps them relevant. When life is quiet, when your spirit is steady, when laughter flows without effort, they grow restless. They start to fidget in the silence, searching for something to disrupt, something to break. They can't stand stillness, because stillness exposes them. In stillness, you can finally hear yourself again, and that, to them, is danger. So, they stir the water, always. It starts with a word, a question, a tone so small you almost miss it. I heard something strange about you today. You know, not everyone thinks you can handle that. Or maybe just a soft, "Are you sure you can trust them?" It's never a storm at first. It's a pebble tossed into the pond of your peace. The ripples spread slowly, touching every corner of your mind, until the water that was once clear starts to distort your reflection. And that's their gift, the art of quiet disruption. They don't throw punches, they plant doubts. They don't scream, they whisper. They build tension where none exists. Twist words until they don't resemble the truth. They can take a harmless moment, a neutral comment, and turn it into a wound. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're already defending yourself for things you never said, apologizing for feelings you never felt. They use chaos as camouflage. When the air thickens, when tempers flare, no one can see clearly. They know this, they rely on it. While you're distracted by confusion, they move freely, rearranging the truth in their favor. Sometimes they'll light the fire themselves, subtle provocation, a carefully timed insult. And then once the flames rise, they'll rush in as the firefighter, the rescuer, the voice of reason. "Let's all calm down," they'll say, pretending to be the only one in control. And everyone believes them because the evidence always burns in the very fire they create. Look closely, and you'll notice a pattern. The drama follows them everywhere. Different people, different settings, but the same emotional storm. And somehow, they are always near the center, even if they claim to hate the noise. "I can't stand conflict," they'll insist, as if chaos simply happens to them, as if they're cursed with bad luck. But there's no curse here, just calculation. They need conflict to survive because it serves a purpose. It keeps you too tired to question. When your days are filled with tension, when every conversation feels like a minefield, you don't have energy left for clarity. They depend on your exhaustion. It's easier to mold someone who's too weary to think, too desperate for peace to demand truth. Sometimes the conflict is external, arguments with friends, misunderstandings at work, sudden distance between you and people you love. And when you trace it back, the common thread always leads to them, not because they directly caused it, but because they seeded it. A quiet word here, a casual mention there. "I just think you should be careful." I don't want to start anything, but they will pit people against each other and then step aside, innocent, confused, even sympathetic. They'll comfort you about the very pain they engineered. And when they can't create chaos between you and others, they'll turn inward, building conflict inside you. They'll make you doubt your worth, your instincts, your judgment. They'll praise you one moment and criticize you the next, until you don't know which version of yourself is real. You begin to chase their approval the way someone in the dark chases a flicker of light, believing that if you can just please them, you'll find calm again. But calm never comes, because calm to them means losing their grip. What they crave isn't resolution, it's repetition. The endless loop of breaking and mending, hurting and healing, pushing and pulling. They want you caught in that rhythm because it keeps you predictable. As long as you're reacting to them, you're not rebuilding yourself. As long as you're defending, explaining, apologizing, you're still within their reach. They are architects of imbalance. Even when everything appears normal, they're adjusting the foundation beneath you. They'll question your motives in subtle ways, turning your good intentions into suspicious acts. Why did you do that? I just find it strange that you didn't tell me first. Their tone sounds curious, not accusatory, but you can feel the implication. It lingers long after the words are gone. You'll notice how the chaos always seems to find its way back to them. The same cycle, the same tears, the same arguments revisited under new disguises. And yet, every time, you end up being the one who apologizes. That's how they keep the balance tilted. You absorb the blame and they stay clean. And here's the part that makes it all so convincing. They will mix their manipulation with moments of real tenderness. They will comfort you after the storm, hold you while you cry, whisper, "I hate when we fight." You'll want to believe it. You'll want to believe that this time it's different. But tenderness without accountability is just a reset button. It's how they start the next round. They call it passion. They'll say, "We just feel deeply," or "That's what makes this connection real." But passion that destroys your peace isn't love, it's addiction. You start mistaking intensity for intimacy, chaos for depth. You tell yourself that every relationship has its ups and downs, that maybe you're the problem for wanting peace. But listen carefully. Healthy love may challenge you, but it never confuses you. It never makes you fear calm. If you've ever noticed how your body tenses around someone, how your laughter feels forced, how your shoulders ache when they're near, that's not imagination. That's your spirit defending itself. Your body knows when it's living in a battlefield, even when your heart refuses to admit it. And the cruelest part is how normal it begins to feel. You start adapting to the chaos. You anticipate their moods before they speak. You prepare for tension even on peaceful days. You find yourself missing them when they're gone. Not because you're happy with them, but because your nervous system has grown addicted to the noise. But there comes a moment, quiet, almost sacred, when you realize that the peace you were protecting them from was never yours to lose. You begin to see that calm is not emptiness. It's healing. It's clarity. It's the absence of manipulation disguised as care. And when that realization dawns, even if it's just for a second, you feel it. The air is different without them. They may try to stir the water again, but this time you don't reach for the oar. You let the ripples fade on their own, because for the first time you understand their power only works when you participate. And silence, real silence, isn't weakness, it's freedom. They notice your light before you do. It's instinctive, like the way predators sense movement in the dark. They see it in the way you enter a room and make people straighten their posture without even speaking. They hear it in your laughter, the kind that fills a space and makes silence seem small. They feel it in your calm, in that unshakable current that runs beneath your words even when life is heavy. You carry something they've never known, an inner fire that asks for nothing, that burns without needing permission. And that is exactly why they come for it. They don't understand light. They can't create it. They've lived too long in the comfort of their own shadow, where blame replaces growth and envy feels safer than effort. So when they meet someone who radiates what they cannot manufacture, joy, authenticity, quiet confidence, it unsettles them. Your presence exposes what they've tried to hide from themselves. Your peace becomes a mirror, and in it, they see their own emptiness. And they hate you for showing them, but they'll never admit that hate. They'll disguise it as care, as humor, as advice. You've changed, they'll say, when you start setting boundaries. Don't forget where you came from when you begin to rise. I just don't want you to get hurt when you dream bigger than they ever dared to. They speak the language of protection, but the tone is wrong. Their words are dipped in worry, but sharpened by fear. fear that you might outgrow the space they've kept you in. They begin the dimming softly, a joke that lingers too long, a comment that pricks your confidence. You think you're better than everyone now? You're too sensitive. You're too ambitious. They say it with a smile as if teasing. You laugh with them the first few times, pretending it doesn't sting, but laughter can only hide so much. After a while, it doesn't sound like humor anymore. It sounds like instruction. Be smaller, be quieter, be easier to manage. Their goal isn't to destroy your light. It's to shrink it to a size they can control. They don't want to erase you, they want to tame you. Because if you disappear completely, they lose their source of energy. But if they can make you dim just enough to doubt yourself, you'll still shine. Just not enough to threaten them. They'll keep you bright enough to draw others in, to attract opportunity, to fill a room with warmth. But every spark you generate, they'll find a way to redirect toward themselves. You'll notice it in conversation. When you speak of something you love, they shift the topic subtly back to their own stories. When you achieve something meaningful, they downplay it or find a flaw. It's great, but not everyone liked it. That's nice, though I heard someone else did it first. They'll interrupt your moments of pride with reminders that keep you grounded in insecurity. Because to them, humility isn't a virtue, it's a leash. When you begin to glow too brightly, when life starts aligning in your favor, they will manufacture shadows to pull you back. They'll bring up your past mistakes, the old fears you've already healed from, or the times you failed before succeeding. They'll wrap it all in the guise of concern. I just don't want you to make the same mistakes. What they really mean is, I don't want you to forget who kept you small. Their discomfort with your joy is almost physical. Watch closely, and you'll see it. The slight stiffening of their shoulders when others praise you. The way their smile tightens when you're at peace. They'll hide it behind polite words, but envy has a scent, and your spirit can always smell it. It's that heaviness that fills the room when you start to shine. A silence that hums with resentment. And yet, their resentment is mixed with need. Because your light feeds them, they stay close to you not out of love, but out of hunger. You bring them proximity to warmth they cannot generate on their own. Your laughter becomes their camouflage, your success, their shield. They stand beside you so they can say, look, I was part of it. They bask in your glow, not realizing that proximity to light doesn't make them brighter. It only makes their darkness clearer. Eventually, the dimming becomes habit. You start lowering your voice when you speak. You hesitate before sharing good news. You start editing your joy, shrinking your dreams, apologizing for your success. You tell yourself it's out of kindness, that you don't want to make them feel left behind. But deep down, you know the truth. You've been trained to make yourself smaller so they won't feel exposed. You start to confuse peace with silence. You convince yourself that harmony is worth your happiness, that if you just keep the balance, if you just avoid shining too much, maybe things will stay calm. But calm born of suppression is not peace, it's surrender. And the longer you live in that surrender, the dimmer your spirit becomes, until one day you wake up and can't remember what it felt like to burn freely. The tragedy is that you will still love them. You will still want them to see your light for what it truly is. Not arrogance, not threat, but beauty. You will want them to celebrate with you, to rise with you, to heal beside you. But some people cannot love what reminds them of what they refuse to become. Your light terrifies them because it holds a mirror to their excuses. It shows them every road they didn't take, every dream they abandoned, every truth they buried beneath bitterness. And so, instead of growing, they choose to pull you down. It's easier to dim someone else than to ignite yourself. It's easier to call someone too much than to admit you've chosen to live as too little. They'll accuse you of being selfish when you set boundaries, of being prideful when you succeed, of being cold when you distance yourself. But what they call selfishness is simply you choosing survival. Because here's the truth they cannot touch. Your light was never theirs to manage. It existed long before they arrived and will outlast their shadow. They can try to bury it under doubt, mockery, and fear, but light, real light, does not die. It waits. Beneath every layer of shame, beneath every whisper that told you to shrink, it burns quietly, faithfully. And one day, without warning, it flares again. A small laugh, a confident step, a dream resurrected. You'll feel it before you see it, the slow return of color to your days, the rhythm of your own pulse in your chest, strong and sure. And when that happens, they'll try one last time to pull you back. They'll tell you you've changed, and you'll smile, not in defense, but in truth. Because yes, you have. You've remembered who you are. They'll hate that. They'll say your glow is arrogance, your boundaries are cruelty, your peace is distance. But what they'll never say aloud is the truth that burns behind their anger. They can no longer feed on you. That's the danger and the beauty of your light. It cannot be taken. It can only be forgotten. And the moment you remember it, every shadow they cast becomes irrelevant, because light does not fight darkness. It simply shines, and darkness has no choice but to disappear. There comes a moment when the disguise begins to crack, not because they suddenly change, but because you finally start to see clearly. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, like dawn creeping into a room that's been dark for too long. You notice small things first, how their concern always sounds heavier than their silence, how every act of kindness carries a residue of control, how you leave every conversation a little more uncertain than before. It's not that they've grown crueler, it's that your spirit has begun to wake up. And when light returns, shadows reveal their true shapes. You start to remember who you were before them, before the noise, before the apologies that became your second language, before you learned to fear your own intuition. You recall the sound of your laughter when it didn't need permission, the way you used to trust your instincts without seeking validation. That memory feels distant at first, like trying to remember a song from another lifetime. But memory is a living thing. It grows louder when fed with awareness. They, of course, sense this shift. They always do. The moment you stop orbiting around them, the moment you stop flinching when they raise their voice, something in their control begins to tremble. They'll react quickly, desperately, weaving new tactics to pull you back in. Suddenly they become gentle again, nostalgic, reminding you of how good things used to be. They speak in past tense because that's where they want you to live, in the comfort of memory, not the clarity of the present. Remember when we were unstoppable, they'll say. Remember when it was us against the world. What they really mean is, remember when you needed me to breathe? They'll attempt to rewrite the story, turning themselves into the hero of your survival. You wouldn't have made it without me, they'll whisper. No one else would have understood you like I did. The words are soft, persuasive, almost tender, but underneath them is the same old hunger, control disguised as closeness. They don't want reconciliation, they want relevance. Because if they can remind you of what you once shared, they can make you forget what it cost you. But something in you resists, a part of you that no longer wants to be saved. It doesn't shout, it simply stands still. And that stillness terrifies them, because stillness means you're listening to yourself again. It means their voice is no longer the loudest one in your head. So they shift the tone once more. If affection doesn't work, they'll turn to guilt. If guilt fails, they'll turn to chaos. They'll stir rumors, sow confusion, make others question your motives. They'll accuse you of being ungrateful, cruel, selfish. And the irony is sharp. They'll do everything they once accused you of doing. It's projection turned into warfare. But this time, you don't take the bait. You've learned that their chaos only works when you respond. Silence becomes your new language of power. You begin to see the pattern of their survival. They need a stage, an audience, a script that keeps them central. When you refuse to play your role, the performance collapses, and that's when their mask truly falls, not in anger, but in emptiness. Beneath every manipulator is a hollow space, an echo of someone who never learned to stand alone. Their cruelty was never about strength, it was always about fear. This realization doesn't come with triumph, it comes with grief. Because you see, it's not just that they hurt you, it's that they never knew how to love you. They mistook possession for devotion, dependence for intimacy. They couldn't give what they didn't have. You were never fighting a monster. You were confronting a wounded soul trying to survive through control. And though understanding this brings compassion, it also brings clarity. Compassion doesn't require continued contact. You can forgive someone and still walk away. So you do, not with anger, not with ceremony, but with quiet certainty. You stop explaining, you stop proving, you stop performing your pain for someone who was never going to understand it. You gather your energy, the scattered pieces of yourself you left behind in their shadow, and you begin the slow work of returning home to your own light. At first, the absence feels unbearable. The silence they leave behind is almost deafening. You've lived so long on the edge of tension that peace feels unfamiliar, like a room too quiet after years of noise. You miss the intensity, even the chaos. That's how deep the conditioning runs. You've been taught to equate peace with emptiness, but give it time. Stillness has a different kind of music. It just takes longer to hear. In that silence, your body begins to unlearn survival. You stop waiting for the next outburst. Stop rehearsing apologies in your mind. You notice your shoulders drop, your breath deepen. Your reflection in the mirror starts to look like someone you used to know. The colors return slowly, first in your thoughts, then in your voice, then in your eyes. Healing doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens in the ordinary moments. The morning you wake up without dread, the conversation you have without fear, the laughter that comes back naturally, unforced. And while you rebuild, they may linger at the edges of your world, watching, hoping you'll falter. They'll test your boundaries again, not with open cruelty, but with nostalgia, with questions, with half-hearted apologies that sound sincere but smell of manipulation. Can we talk? I miss you. I've changed. But you've learned that real change is not spoken, it's lived. And when someone has spent years feeding on your light, words are not proof. Consistency is. So you remain steady, not hard, not bitter, just steady. Their storms no longer move you. Their silence no longer scares you. You've seen what lies behind the curtain, and it no longer holds power. That's the thing about awakening. Once you've seen the machinery of manipulation, you can't unsee it. There's a profound peace in knowing you no longer need to fight to be understood. You no longer need to prove your innocence in a story that was never yours to carry. You stop trying to rewrite the past and instead begin authoring the present. You understand now that closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from choosing yourself in the absence of one. And perhaps that's the quiet victory they'll never comprehend. That freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just breathes. It sits in sunlight. It reads in silence. It laughs without asking for permission. It lives without needing validation. You are not defined by what they took. You are defined by what you chose to rebuild. And in the end, they may try to convince others that you abandoned them, that you changed, that you became distant. Let them. Because the truth needs no defense. The people meant for your light will feel it without explanation. And the ones who tried to control it, they will fade into the only place that can hold them, the shadows they refuse to leave. The most dangerous kind of deception is not the one that blinds you to the truth. It's the one that makes you doubt your own eyes. It starts quietly, so quietly that you almost miss it. A disagreement, a misunderstanding, a small correction that feels harmless. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. You always take things too personally, and you brush it off because everyone misremembers things sometimes. You don't realize yet that what's happening isn't confusion, it's conditioning. They don't just want you to believe their version of the story. They want you to stop believing your own. Because once your trust in yourself begins to erode, you will lean on them for certainty. That's the first fracture, not in the relationship, but in your sense of reality. They rewrite the past like an artist painting over old canvas. Every correction, every that never happened, adds another layer until your own memories start to blur. They'll tell you that the words you remember weren't said the way you think, that the night you cried was just a misunderstanding, that your pain was an overreaction. You'll start to question not just them, but yourself. Maybe I did mishear. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I really was the one who started it. That's how it begins, with doubt disguised as reason. Soon, they're not just adjusting small details. They're rewriting entire chapters of your life. The things that hurt you most become your fault. The things they did become things you made them do. Their betrayal becomes your miscommunication. They tell the story so calmly, so confidently, that even when your heart protests, your mind hesitates. Because confidence, even false confidence, sounds like truth when spoken often enough. You'll try to hold on to your version of events, but it will feel like holding smoke. Every time you reach for clarity, they shift the frame. That's not what I meant. You're twisting my words. You really need to stop overanalyzing everything. Slowly, the ground beneath you tilts. You start to wonder if maybe you're the one who can't see things clearly. And that's exactly what they want. A person unsure of their own perception is a person they can shape. It's not just what they say, it's how they say it, the tone, the patience, the sigh that makes you feel childish for arguing. They master the art of gentle condescension, the kind that doesn't need to shout to make you feel small. You're remembering this emotionally, they'll say, as if emotion disqualifies truth. You've been so stressed lately. Maybe you're projecting the words sound compassionate, but they land like a verdict. After a while, you stop fighting. Not because you agree, but because you're tired. Arguing with someone who refuses to acknowledge reality is like screaming into a void that echoes back in your own voice. So you go quiet. You let them have the last word. You start to edit yourself before you even speak, removing anything they could twist against you. And that's how they win. Not by proving you wrong, but by making you too weary to insist on being right. The manipulation doesn't stop with you. They'll carry their version of events to others, subtly rewriting your story in public. They've just been so emotional lately. I think they've been under a lot of pressure. They won't sound malicious, they'll sound concerned. And that's what makes it so effective, because when you finally speak up, when you finally try to explain the truth, people will already have a softened image of your credibility. You'll sound like the one unraveling. It's psychological warfare in its quietest form, the kind where your wounds don't bleed. They fade your reflection instead. You begin to feel like a ghost in your own story, present but unheard, alive but unseen. And yet, there's a moment that changes everything. It doesn't come with lightning or revelation, it comes with stillness. You'll be in the middle of one of their corrections, one of those long, careful speeches meant to make you question yourself, and something inside you will go still. You'll stop defending, stop explaining, stop trying to prove your version of the truth, because in that silence you'll realize something profound. The truth doesn't need convincing, it simply is. That realization hits like light through fog. Suddenly, their words no longer sound logical, they sound rehearsed. Their calm no longer feels stable, it feels strategic. You start to hear the pattern beneath their sentences, the manipulation hiding behind the concern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to understand that they were never after truth, they were after control. Truth threatens control because it empowers. Lies preserve it because they confuse. They didn't want to win the argument. They wanted to own the narrative. They wanted to make you question the only witness they couldn't silence, yourself. The next time they say, "That's not what happened," you won't argue. You'll just look at them and think, "I know what I lived." And that quiet conviction will terrify them, because for the first time, their power begins to slip. You stop apologizing for your memory. You stop explaining the logic of your pain. You stop needing them to acknowledge the truth because you understand now that their denial doesn't erase reality. it only reveals their fear of it. In that clarity, you start piecing yourself back together. You revisit old moments, not to relive them, but to reclaim them. You re-inhabit your memories, restoring the color they drained from them. You learn to trust the small voice that says, "No, that's not how it was." That voice is your compass, the part of you that never stopped knowing. And when you finally pull back far enough to see the full picture, you'll understand something that changes everything. They were never rewriting your past to hurt you. They were doing it to protect themselves. Because if they admitted what really happened, they'd have to face who they really are. But that's not your burden anymore. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to convince anyone of what you know. Your healing isn't a courtroom. It's a homecoming. And when you finally stand in that truth, steady and unshaken, something miraculous happens. Their words lose power. Their denial loses weight. Their version of reality collapses under its own emptiness. You realize with quiet certainty that their greatest victory was never convincing you of their lies. It was making you forget your truth. And your greatest act of rebellion is simply remembering. Peace unsettles them. You'll see it when the storms stop, when your life begins to quiet down and you start breathing without fear. For most, that stillness feels like healing, but to them, it feels like starvation. Chaos has always been their food, conflict their oxygen. When the air around you grows calm, they start to suffocate. Because peace means you can finally think clearly, and clear thought is dangerous to anyone who thrives in confusion. So, they stir the water. At first, it's subtle, a passing comment that lands too sharply to be innocent. "I heard something about you the other day. You know, not everyone likes how much you've changed." They say it casually, as though they're just being honest, but their words are chosen like poison, measured, delayed in their effect, crafted to plant a seed, and that seed grows in silence. Doubt, suspicion, fear. You start to second-guess the people who love you. You start to question the stability you've just begun to build. That's how it starts. Small ripples that eventually become waves. They create tension where there was trust. They tilt conversations just enough to make you wonder who's really on your side. Maybe a friend's tone suddenly sounds colder. Maybe you start noticing silences that never bothered you before. What you don't see yet is the invisible hand behind it, the one that drops words like pebbles into the still pond of your peace, then watches the ripples spread. When there isn't enough conflict to feed them, they manufacture it. They'll accidentally bring up something someone said about you. They'll mention old mistakes as if they're just teasing. They'll misinterpret your words on purpose, turning a simple sentence into an accusation. "I didn't mean it like that," you'll protest, and they'll smile, because that's exactly the reaction they wanted. Confusion is control. And when confusion turns to tension, they'll be the first to step in as the mediator. You'll see it, the way they position themselves as the calm in the chaos they created. "I just want to keep the peace," they'll say, while quietly keeping the fire alive behind your back. They ignite the argument, then step forward as the one who resolves it, earning gratitude for cleaning up the very mess they made. It's a perfect illusion. They get to be both the storm and the savior. You start to notice that chaos seems to follow them everywhere. Different people, different places, but the pattern never changes. They'll claim they hate drama, that they're tired of negativity, yet somehow conflict always circles them like a faithful pet. Look closer and you'll see it. They're always near the center of every storm, even when they pretend to stand at its edge. Their art is division. They pit people against each other while remaining untouched. To one, they whisper sympathy. To another, quiet criticism. Then they step back and watch the explosion. When the dust settles, they play the innocent observer, shaking their head at the fallout they designed. "It's such a shame things turned out this way," they'll sigh while secretly savoring the control chaos gives them. Because chaos keeps you distracted. It keeps you too busy defending yourself to notice what they're really doing. You'll spend hours replaying arguments in your head, analyzing what went wrong, wondering if you said too much or too little. Meanwhile, they're quietly tightening their grip, positioning themselves as your only constant. When everyone else feels uncertain, they'll be the one to say, "You can always trust me." And after everything they've put you through, you might believe them. If they can't turn you against others, they'll turn you against yourself. They know how to find the cracks in your armor, the little insecurities you thought you'd outgrown. They'll bring them up softly under the guise of honesty. I just worry you might be getting in over your head. You've always been so emotional. You're a little too trusting, you know. They disguise judgment as care, and before long, you start policing yourself on their behalf. You start questioning your instincts, doubting your worth, censoring your own joy. That's their true skill. They don't need to chain you, they teach you to chain yourself. It's not about shouting or insults, it's about erosion. Every small comment, every strategically timed silence, every sigh, they wear you down like water against stone. Until one day you find yourself shrinking without realizing it. You speak less, laugh less, dream less, because you've learned that every expression of your joy will be twisted, every flicker of confidence will be tested. You start living cautiously, measuring your peace in whispers. And yet there's a strange genius to their cruelty. It's always disguised as passion. I just care too much. I can't help being honest. You know how I get when I love someone. They turn their volatility into virtue, convincing you that their chaos is just intensity, that their jealousy is love, that their anger is truth. You begin to believe that relationships are supposed to feel this way, unstable, unpredictable, exhausting. But love doesn't drain you. It doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't make you afraid to speak or to rest. Love steadies. It strengthens. It makes you exhale. You'll start to notice something else, how peace always disappears when they arrive, how the atmosphere shifts the moment they walk in, a tightening in your chest, a silence that hums with unease. Your body knows before your mind admits it. That subtle tension is not coincidence, it's memory, your spirit remembering what it feels like to brace for impact. Eventually you'll see the rhythm clearly. The pattern never lies. They create conflict, then resolve it, then remind you who brought back the peace. They break you, then patch you just enough to keep you functional. And every time you try to pull away, they'll say you're overreacting, that you're too sensitive, that you're the one who loves drama. They twist the story until you begin to believe it. That's the cruelest part, how they make you think the storm is your fault. But the truth is, peace doesn't vanish around them by accident. It dies by design, because the calmer you are, the clearer you become. And clarity is their enemy. A peaceful mind can see patterns, connect dots, recognize manipulation. That's why they thrive in chaos. It blinds you. One day, though, you'll grow tired, not just weary, but soul tired. You'll start craving silence not as an escape, but as a homecoming. You'll stop chasing their explanations and start observing their patterns. You'll realize that calm doesn't need to be defended. It just needs to be chosen. And when you finally choose it, they will unravel because they don't know how to exist in stillness. When you stop reacting, they lose their script. When you stop engaging, their chaos falls flat. You'll see the desperation behind their fury, the hollowness behind their charm. They'll try one last time to stir the storm. They'll provoke, plead, accuse, anything to make you dance again to their rhythm of noise. But you won't. You'll watch the storm rage, and this time you won't mistake the thunder for love. You'll just let it pass. And when the silence returns, you'll realize something miraculous. Peace was never gone. It was only buried beneath their noise. And now, finally, it's yours again, steady, sacred, and unshakable. They never truly loved your peace. They only loved the power they had in your chaos. And when they realized the storm no longer answered to their call, they began to fear the quiet. Because quiet is clarity. Quiet is truth. And truth exposes everything they've tried so hard to keep hidden. You'll notice how their energy shifts once you stop reacting. There's a restlessness that creeps into them, a panic that hides behind their sudden sweetness. They'll start reaching out more often, pretending concern, asking questions that sound kind but are really just fishing for access. I've been thinking about you. Are you okay? You've seemed distant, They'll say they miss you, but what they really miss is control. They will test the doors they use to walk through freely. They'll knock with guilt, with nostalgia, with 1,000 versions of remember when. They'll bring up the good memories first, the laughter, the closeness, the times they helped you. And when that doesn't work, they'll reach for sorrow. I don't understand what happened to us. I thought I meant more to you. They will weaponize emotion, not because they feel it deeply, but because they know you do. This is where their manipulation becomes most dangerous, because it's not loud anymore. It's quiet. It's disguised as regret, as vulnerability. They know you have a soft heart, and they will press every bruise of your empathy until you start to ache with the desire to comfort them again. They'll apologize, but only enough to reopen the door, not enough to walk through it changed. And if remorse doesn't work, they'll shift tactics again. The tone will harden. You've changed. You're not the same person anymore. They'll call you cold, ungrateful, heartless. They'll say you've lost your compassion, that you've become distant. But what they're really saying is, you've stopped being controllable. They mistake boundaries for cruelty because in their world, love and submission were always the same thing. You'll find yourself tempted to explain, to defend your growth, to prove that you're still kind, but you don't need to. Their anger is not a reflection of your heart. It's a mirror of their loss. They're not mourning you. They're mourning the version of you that stayed quiet when hurt, that forgave without accountability, that kept giving without being refilled. That version was easy to manipulate. The one standing before them now is not. This is the part no one warns you about, the aftermath. People talk about leaving toxic relationships, but not about the haunting that follows. The memories don't fade immediately. The guilt lingers like smoke after a fire. You'll replay every conversation, wondering if you were too harsh, if maybe they didn't mean it, if you could have done something differently. That's the ghost they leave behind, not themselves, but doubt. It will visit you at night when the house is still and your mind is tired. It will whisper, maybe they weren't so bad. It will show you the highlight reel, the moments of laughter, the small kindnesses, the tears that looked real. It will not show you the exhaustion that came after, the way your spirit dimmed, the countless nights you felt unseen. Memory is a gentle liar when guided by loneliness, but truth is not measured in moments, it's measured in patterns. And the pattern was always this: peace cost you too much. Every time you chose yourself, they called it betrayal. Every time you tried to breathe, they accused you of abandonment. Every boundary you built, they framed as cruelty. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that has to bleed to be loved. They will try to rewrite the story, of course. To others, they'll say they were misunderstood, that you were difficult, emotional, unstable. They'll mix fragments of truth with layers of fiction until even the people who once knew you start to question what really happened. But the ones who truly know your spirit will feel the difference. They'll see the light in your eyes returning, the way your voice steadies when you speak. Because healing is visible. You can't fake that. And when you finally stop checking the shadows for their shape, something shifts. You start to realize how much space they once occupied in your thoughts, how they had turned your mind into their theater, your emotions into their stage. Every reaction was applause to them. But now the theater is empty and you no longer perform. That silence isn't emptiness. It's reclamation. You'll notice small things first, how music sounds different now, how the world seems softer, more vivid. You'll catch yourself laughing at something simple and it will surprise you, like finding a forgotten photograph of who you were before. You'll walk past the places that once felt haunted and feel nothing but air. That's how healing announces itself, not with fireworks, but with absence. The absence of pain, the absence of fear, the absence of their voice in your head. But they won't stop easily. They'll circle back when they sense you've moved on, because they always return to what once fed them. They'll appear again, suddenly, as if by fate. A message, a coincidental encounter, a story designed to draw sympathy. They'll say they've changed. They'll sound believable, but this time, you'll notice something different. the emptiness behind their words. You'll see the performance for what it is. Because real change is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be believed. It simply shows up differently. And you'll realize as they speak that their voice no longer stirs you. That's when you'll know you're free. Not when they're gone, but when their presence no longer moves you. And freedom isn't loud either. It doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it feels like relief, like breathing without remembering that you used to hold your breath. Like waking up and realizing you didn't dream about them. In that space, you'll rediscover something sacred, your light, the one they tried to bury under confusion and guilt, the one that was never extinguished, only hidden. It will flicker first, then glow, then blaze. And when it does, you'll understand what they feared all along, that your peace was never their loss to grieve. It was their mirror to face. Because people like them are never defeated by confrontation. They're defeated by indifference, by silence, by the simple act of you living well without them. That's the ending they can't rewrite. That's the closure they'll never understand. And when they fade for good, when the noise finally stills, you'll realize the truth that took you so long to see. They were never the storm. You were the calm they couldn't corrupt. Healing doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. It arrives slowly, like sunlight creeping through blinds after a long night. At first, it feels almost foreign, the quiet, the stillness, the absence of constant tension. You half expect the chaos to return because you've lived so long inside the storm that calm feels suspicious. You keep waiting for the phone call, the message, the sudden shift in energy that always used to come before another collapse. But nothing happens. The silence stays, and slowly you realize that silence doesn't mean danger anymore. It means freedom. The first thing that changes is how you breathe. It sounds simple, almost too small to matter, but you feel it. For the first time in years, your lungs expand without that invisible weight pressing down. You're not measuring your words, not anticipating reactions, not performing peace to keep someone else comfortable. You just exist, unobserved, unjudged, unclaimed. That simplicity feels revolutionary. People who have never lived under manipulation will never understand how much courage it takes to trust peace again. They think healing is joy, but at first it's grief. You grieve the time you lost, the version of yourself you abandoned to keep someone else calm. You grieve the memories that should have been beautiful but weren't. You even grieve the illusion, the fantasy of what you hoped they could have been if only they had chosen light instead of control. Healing requires mourning the story you wrote in your heart that never came true. But in that grief, something begins to awaken. You start noticing beauty in the smallest things, the way sunlight hits your skin, the way laughter sounds when it isn't forced, the way your body relaxes when no one is watching. You start trusting yourself again, one small decision at a time. You make choices without asking permission. You speak without rehearsing. You rest without guilt. These are not small victories. They are sacred acts of reclamation. Because healing is not about becoming who you were before. That person existed without the wisdom you now carry. Healing is about becoming someone new, someone forged in truth, in boundaries, in unshakable peace. The old you survived, the new you lives. And yet, healing is not linear. There will be days when the past knocks on your door wearing nostalgia's disguise. You'll hear a song, see a familiar place, or read a message that pulls you back into the echo of who you were. For a moment, it might feel like gravity pulling you toward the old rhythm, the drama, the intensity, the false comfort of chaos. But then you remember, peace may be quieter, but it's real. It doesn't demand. It doesn't drain. It just is. You start to see people differently, too. Where you once tolerated manipulation disguised as affection, now you sense it immediately. The subtle guilt, the flattery that feels like a transaction, the people who only show up when they need your light but never bring any of their own. You no longer romanticize potential. You stop trying to heal those who refuse to help themselves. You realize that compassion without boundaries is self-betrayal. and that loving someone doesn't mean shrinking to fit their comfort. There's power in that realization, but also gentleness. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to understand the pain they caused. The closure you used to crave becomes irrelevant because their understanding was never the missing piece. It was your own acceptance. You accept that not every story ends with justice, but every wound can end with peace. You'll start to see your past not as something to resent, but as something that refined you. What broke you also revealed you. It stripped away illusions, forcing you to see yourself unfiltered. Pain taught you clarity. It taught you to listen to the quiet voice you once ignored, the one that whispered leave long before you found the strength to go. That voice was never wrong. It was just waiting for you to believe it. And now, you do. Your boundaries stop feeling like walls and start feeling like doors, ones you open carefully, intentionally, to the people who earn the right to enter. You no longer explain your no or apologize for your distance. Your peace becomes your filter. Not everyone gets access to it, and that's not arrogance, that's stewardship. Because you finally understand, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. There will be moments when life tests that peace. Challenges will come, as they always do, but you'll notice how differently you respond now. You no longer spiral at the first sign of conflict. You don't mistake tension for danger. You face difficulty with calm steadiness because you know chaos doesn't live inside you anymore. It only visits. And visitors don't stay unless you invite them. The people around you will see the change before you fully do. They'll notice how your energy has shifted, how you walk slower, speak softer, laugh deeper. They'll sense the quiet authority that comes from surviving without bitterness. You'll find yourself drawing new people into your orbit, souls who speak the language of peace, who don't compete with your light but add to it. You'll begin to attract what mirrors your healing, not your hurt. And as time passes, you'll realize that healing was never about forgetting what happened. It was about reclaiming who you were always meant to be. You'll look back and understand that you didn't lose years, you gathered wisdom. You didn't waste love, you learned its worth. You didn't fall apart. You were being reassembled into something stronger, quieter, and truer. One day you'll wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in months. The story that once defined you has become just another chapter, important but complete. You won't feel anger when you remember. It will feel like reading about someone else, because in many ways it is. That old version of you, the one who tolerated the manipulation, the gaslighting, the chaos, no longer exists. They were the caterpillar. You are the wings. And maybe that's the final lesson of it all. Survival is not the end of the story. Transformation is. You were never meant to stay in the shadow of their control. You were meant to rise from it, to become light, not despite the darkness, but because of it. Healing isn't loud, but it's undeniable. It changes the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you move through the world. You no longer chase peace. You are peace. You no longer seek validation. You carry it within. You no longer search for love in places that require your silence. You have learned to love yourself loudly, freely, without apology. That is the real ending they never wanted for you. Not revenge, not bitterness, just freedom so vast it no longer needs to prove itself. Because the greatest victory is not in being seen by those who broke you, it's in becoming invisible to their reach. And that's where you'll remain, not hiding, not hurting, but radiant, standing quietly in the light they once tried to steal, knowing they could never touch it again.